All right, so we are working on a U10 session for another team, not a team I coach. So we're going to come up with a session. We've gotten a little bit of guidance from the coach, looking at some changes of direction, some individual dribbling work, how to take space, commit defenders, etc., etc. Well, that's what we're gonna do on the first session. They gave me more info, but we'll do that all in the second one. So, warm up piece, something really simple to get going. We can have a marker, a couple X's, a marker, couple of X's, guys playing, and then the front two have a ball. So we'll put a ball there and a ball there. Okay, real simple to start. Just have them dribble across, do a takeover. We're just activating some muscle groups, getting them running, getting their heart going, elevating their blood heart rate. Just starting. So we do a simple dribble. They alternate feet, and then we start to change a little to lots of touches. And then we can go on to toe taps. And for that, you might want to go halfway. So it could be probably 10, maybe 15 yards. So toe taps, just touches on top of the ball. We're looking for real small touches and fast. Now, if they start getting fatigued, sometimes things that I've done is, they get halfway there, and then once they're halfway there, they just pass the ball across and they follow their pass. Or they can do toe taps. If it's, say, 10 yards, they do toe taps all the way across, more than fine. Then we can throw in inside, outside touches. We can progress to inside, double outside. If they're feeling good about that, they can throw in a feint or a fake shot. We can do scissors. And then various turns. I don't need to write it all out because it can be a variety of different moves. Now, after inside cuts. So in reality, once we get about this way down the list, we want to do right cut, left cut, maybe a turn on top of the ball. So they're just taking touches with their cleats on top of the ball. Now, the difference between above and below the line. Above the line is, maybe we'll do that in a different color. Above the line is just technique. Okay, it's purely technique. Zero real pressure. The only pressure is we're asking them to do it kind of quick. Now, once we get down here, it changes. So now they're going at an opponent. Okay? And so the difference there is once we progress below the line, we're working through all these different moves. Now these players dribble directly at each other. And then before they run into each other, they do whatever move you give them. So if it's a right cut, everyone's just taking a touch with the outside of their right foot and going to the right. Now, what's so great about doing it running at each other is it's just so much more real, and they have to gauge the timing, and it changes each time. So, if that's just a cone in here, well, the cone doesn't move. It just sits there. So it's pretty limited on how much it can do for you. Here, if you're running at somebody, you got to look up, you've got to multitask and do a lot of different things so you don't run into each other. Now, as they're working their way through these, and if this guy goes right and that guy goes right, there's never a collision. Okay? Now, the catch is, and this is something that's huge, that addresses awareness. That's one of the big adds of doing it this way. Timing is huge. And something I always stress, and I always kind of talk about like a railroad track, is as soon as you're off the track, you need to get right back on, so that they don't end up wandering way off to the right. I want them going around that person and cutting back. And it's not necessarily, so let's do that. It's not necessarily because they would have to do that in a game. It's because now I get 2 cuts for the price of 1. So I'm always looking to add layers, add extra reps, add extra touches. And a little thing like that is not going to make a world of difference. But if you're constantly adding stuff like that, it adds up quick. You do that throughout the course of 10 months, over the course of a year, you're doing real good. And okay, so the other thing, I'll put a star here as we start to get a little more complex, is obviously you can introduce harder moves if you wanted to. The biggest thing that I like to introduce, and awareness was something that was on this list, is as these guys are now dribbling across, okay, across from them, so let's say I'm this guy here. As I'm dribbling across, this guy who's in line is holding up numbers on his hands. Okay? So as I dribble, I'm this guy here. I'm looking across and calling out whatever numbers he shows. 4, 3, 1, 5, whatever. And the goal is to call out, let's say, at least 2 or 3 numbers before we get, mind you, 10, 15 yards, before we get across. So now it's about, this is one of my favorite words for players. Multitasking. Okay, so the biggest thing that hurts awareness is a not super technical player has to constantly be staring at his ball. Well, the reality is the only time they really need to look at their ball is when they're going to take that touch. The rest of the time, the eyes should be up, and they should be taking mental pictures of what's happening, and this reinforces that perfectly. Okay, the final thing that we do is we add in a takeover. Okay, so on the takeover, we still see this okay? Yeah. So on the takeover, this is what I do. So here's one cone, there's another cone, and then behind that, so let's say that's 10 yards. Behind that, we'll say that's 2 yards. Well, whoever's up is here on the marker. Okay? Then whoever's in line behind him has to start there. Okay? Now, I'll tell you why I do that. So, the keys here, let's label this. Okay? So, the key here, couple things. This is something I talk about a lot because it's important in a takeover, and it's important in just about everything. So side on, okay? Timing. And communication, which is usually one of the most annoying things I hear out from players because it's so generic. It's got to be extremely specific. Communication is not an acceptable answer with my teams usually. I want, if it is some communication in some way, what communication? What should they have said? Who should have said it? And all that stuff. So now this time, this player is dribbling across. This player here is side on. So let's say to start, we're all going right-footed. So this player stands side on with their left foot closest. So they're looking that way. Okay? As he's dribbling up, he's saying stay right, stay right, stay right. Stay to the right side. And then here is the key. This player here is responsible for creating a yard of space to do a clean takeover with their teammate. So what they must do is they must check away and check back so that the check back is exactly on time with where this guy gets to their cone. We want them arriving at the exact same time. Nobody stands and waits. Not allowed. We don't do it in passing. We don't do it in takeovers. We do it as little as possible. Okay, because we're easy to play against that way. So now they've got to check away, check back, and then the takeover will actually be right to right. So right foot to right foot. First touch should look like a pass. So inside of the foot. And it should be a positive touch. So not a trap, not where we stop the ball, a touch out in front. So let's say this guy has gotten there. His first touch should be about that big because he knows that he's got 10 space, or she, 10 yards of space. So take a positive touch and accelerate and catch back up to your ball. You're faster without the ball. So if you know you've got free space, get into that and get flying. Take what you've got. Okay? And then this guy's doing the same thing. Stay right, stay right, stay right, whatever. And then check away, check back. Maybe he takes a poor touch in here, and this person's already checked. They may have to do a double check. Timing gets screwed up in games. That's a very realistic factor. This guy's got to deal with it. Check, double check. Bottom line, it's on him to be back at that marker when the ball arrives. Okay? Communication, body shape, positive touches. The timing is huge, and that's your phase one warm-up. Okay? Starting unopposed, very simple dribbles, getting touches, alternating feet. Now we start introducing moves. Now we start introducing them running at another moving person. And we start asking them to be more aware, calling out the numbers. I mean, it just progresses to more and more and more realistic. And then eventually with the takeover, now they're having to work together in a very real way to make it work. Okay, so that's the first part. Second part is, if I can remember, the second part is, combination play. So we've already done some dribbling. So this is sort of what I like to do. Well, it's an option anyways. So you really make 2 grids. Okay. With 2 grids in them, or a halfway line, or whatever. Okay, so we worked on some technique. Now we're going to work on something with a partner, something with a little bit extra numbers, and then we'll progress this as well, make it more and more difficult. Okay, so this is the yellow team grid. That's the orange team grid. So what that means is you get however many oranges here, however many yellows here, and then each group sends a defender across. Now, if you want, so here, let's just do this then. So we'll do orange, orange, and then 2 lines of yellows on the corner, on like the sides. Okay, over here, what I've done before is I'll have this grid set up the same, but going the other direction. And I'll show you why here. And again, this can be done a million different ways. I'm making this up as we go. So you've got 2 oranges playing defense, 2 yellows over here playing defense. And what's nice about this is that this group competes against that group. And after a 3-4 minute game, 5 minutes max probably, you can stop, count, score, and then each round is a win or a loss for yellows or for oranges. And then we just play like best out of 7, best out of 11, best out of whatever, depending on what your numbers are. Okay? What's so helpful on that is, and I preach this a lot too, is it's short durations or short rounds, and that equals high exertion. Multiple rounds let's say 3 to 5 minutes, means that it's fair for when they're in and playing, you're demanding, 85% minimum. Okay? Now they're getting training that's real. The other thing that's nice about it too is they're working their butts off for a little bit, and then they get a rest. And then they're working, and then they get a break. And then they're working, and then they get a break. That's very similar to how the game is, the sport is. So you actually get some pretty realistic conditioning in here as well through playing the game versus doing sprints or whatever. So this is how the game works. 1 ball between each pair. Okay? Each round starts with a square pass. As soon as the ball is played square, everybody is live. Okay? The defenders have to start at the back of their grid. So there's grid 1, grid 2. I'll number those. 1 and 2. Okay? So they play it square. As soon as they do, this guy can move off his line. And then it's just 2v1. They can dribble or pass over this line into the second grid. As soon as the ball enters grid 2, this player is live. Okay? Now, if these two can win that 2v1 and then that 2v1, and they maintain possession out of the second mini grid, box 2, those two get a point. Okay? Now, the reason why I had them going other ways is you could also, of course, incorporate a goal on the ends. Okay? So with this age, you may say, okay, guys, dribble through the end, and that's 1 point. If you can score on the goal, that's 2 points, 2 more points, or 1 more point, or 3 more points, or whatever. However you want to do it. And if there's a goalie, maybe it's worth more points. If there's no keeper, maybe they just are striking it in the air to hit the net without bouncing. That's fine too. You can do it however you want. Okay, so obviously in here, the big thing that you likely have to explain to kids is that they have to learn how to decide, and what's the criteria that they're looking for is pass versus dribble. A lot of kids will do one or the other. Okay? They're usually, you've got to go for a little while and explain both for them to start doing them both. Okay? The other thing, obviously, here you can introduce are combinations and what are the cues for combos. And then also, I want to say like how to, I guess, commit the defender. Okay, so let's just run through a couple of these. So the first one is, in reality, if I'm doing this young, my very first phase is 2v0. Okay? Maybe in the dribbling, maybe we add some combination stuff where they're doing overlaps and give and goes or something like that. So that here, when we start and we go 2v0, maybe the rule then is in each box, they have to do some sort of a pattern. And not a pattern, I mean, not a fixed pattern, it's up to them. So they've got to do, we'll go easy, you know, give and go, overlap, since we already did it, a takeover. We'll keep it simple. 3 is plenty, okay? Keep it simple. But in each square, they've got to get one of those off. This is also the nice time it would be to have a goal at the end so that there's something a little bit more rewarding than 2 versus 0 at the end. But in all reality, we're not going to do 2v0 very long. The only reason to do 2v0 is so that they can see all of these patterns. And you can start to very easily, with almost zero pressure, introduce those things, explain them, and then we add our defenders back. Or we add them for the first time, or whatever. Okay? Now maybe you can say, all right, guys, get out the end. Or to start again and try and give them opportunities for more points. Maybe it's, if you guys do a combo in one of these boxes, it's still worth a point. So you can score a point in this box, lose the ball here, and you got a point still. Whereas eventually it will be dribble through both for that point. So again, starts a little easier, we make it a little harder as we go. Okay, and then from here, really, you just have to watch them play and catch them in moments where they're not making the right decision. So the cues for these 3 things, all right, well, let's start at the top. A give and go. So give and go is usually a good option. It's the easiest option that they'll try and show for. Is when if the defender overcommits and is like flying to this guy, but he's not going to get there, then, well, he's not going to get there when the ball gets there, but he's flying over to put pressure on our teammate. Well, he's not going to have time for me to make a run like this and for the run to develop and me get into some lane over here. So when that defender is super committed and flying in there, that's when you just need to shut and just say, yeah, ball, ball, ball. Okay? And then this player has to give the ball. And something I always say, if you give the ball under pressure, okay, so let's take that pass away. If you give the ball to a teammate under pressure, you have to, so there's the blue run, or the defender run. If you give that ball to a teammate under pressure, in your next 3 steps, get it back. And that's just, okay, so if this guy goes from there to there, the space that's open has changed. Now it's behind him a little bit more. So play that ball there, and then step 1, step 2, step 3. And then there's your option for the give and go. Or if this player is really overcommitted, the best option sometimes is just to dribble. And that's fine as well. Okay? But that's the visual cue, is if the defender is a little late and they're overcommitted, play the easy one, 3 steps, get it back. Give and go. Easy. Okay? Overlap. An overlap is essentially if we're doing a... Oh, sorry. Confusing myself here. An overlap is one that I like because it makes the defender make a decision at full speed. Okay? So I like a lot of times play that first ball in, and then we get around him. Okay? So now there's an O here, and this guy who has the ball. So now the key is on this guy. He has to read what this player does. So if this player runs straight up, he can obviously play it down the line. If this player runs here and covers the man making the run, you can dribble over there. Or if this player steps in the passing lane, again, you can dribble over there. The key is making that run, making him react to the run, the defender, and then again, our counter reaction. And that tends to be, there's a theme there, is let's see what they do, and then let's make a good decision based on that. And then essentially a takeover is, last thing, if you receive this ball here, the dribbling should be this way. Okay? Not only does that open up a lane for this guy getting around you, it makes the passing angle is now there instead of trying to play a straight ball, and it can commit this guy. Okay, and that's something that we're going to touch on here in a minute. Well, we'll just do it now. Is that if you can get that guy to step and get tight. So let's move this player again now that he's dribbled. Okay, and this guy made this overlapping run. The key is you just have to release the ball. You're looking to get this guy to step forward towards you. The more he steps forward, the more space there is in behind him. Okay, but if you play that ball too early, he can move sideways and challenge as the ball is being received. So playing it too early is a big, big no-no. Okay, if you dribble a bit and you commit this guy to step forward and you play it before he gets so close he closes down your options, you're going to put him in a 1v0 into the next grid. And that's the key. Okay, so it's timing. It's what am I looking for to know when to release the ball, and that's it. You want this guy stepping up. So you just dribble. Take what space they give you until he makes a decision. He either just stands there and you say thank you and you dribble over, or he comes rushing out to you and you may release that ball early, right away, or he holds and delays until you get close enough, he gets excited and feels like a lot of energy and anxiety. He's got to do something. Then he takes those first 2 steps. You suck him in, release the ball, and then just like we talked about with the combos, so let's say we release the ball. Well, we were under pressure to a guy who was stepping to us. So after we play the ball, what do? 3 steps, those should be dashed. 3 steps, get the ball back. So now we've done an overlap and possibly a give and go. Okay, so it's all good. And again, we're just really touching on decision-making, timing, sucking guys in, all that kind of stuff. So that's activity 2. play a bunch of rounds of that. And you can play, best of 7. And then after that activity, the losing group overall gets a penalty. Or you can do it throughout the entire session. So from the start of training all the way to the end, you just keep track of the overall wins and losses per round. Give the teams a name or whatever. And now they're competing for 90 minutes in training with the other group. Oftentimes, especially if it's a close game, if you've been keeping score since the very start of training and it's close by the end, that final half an hour of your session will look like a game. I mean, they will be competing. And I think it's also good, too, to kind of keep them on their toes. If they don't know what the penalty is, they never know when it's going to be something really hard or something really easy. So to play it safe, they always work hard. And if they take it easy, that's the day they get a real hard penalty. If everybody works their butts off and they barely lose, maybe the penalty is picking up the cones, or it's 5 push-ups, or who knows, something easy. Okay, similar, still talking about decision making, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, now this, and there's a million variations here. You can have bonets. You can have a lot of different point systems. Okay, so let's see here. So let's go. Let's do this. So we'll go 3 lines. So X. Okay, like so. And then the reason why I love the mats are because you can use them like this. So we put another cone here, another cone there, and then a mat there, and a mat there, and then a cone, and then a cone. Okay? Now what these do, well, I'll just show you instead of tell you. So it's going to be X's versus O's. And this is the way it works, okay? So we're going to play a 3v3 game. But we're going to add something into this game that delays the third defender. So for a moment, or if they go quick enough, it can be 3v2. So this would be more like transition, but sucking in a defender and then releasing the ball, that happens in transition a lot. So this is the way it works. So any black X can serve it, and they can serve it to any line they want. Okay, you can start simpler than that, of course. So let's just say this guy plays it here. Okay? As soon as the ball is played, everybody is live. Or you can do it as soon as they take a touch, everyone's live, however you want to do it. But here's the catch. So these guys come on. Okay? However, and these guys come on as well. However, whoever played the ball across cannot mark up, put pressure on, challenge for the ball, can't do anything until they've run around that mat. Okay? So he comes out to defend, and then this person has to run around, and then they join the attack. So maybe they're a recovering midfielder or a defender or whatever. But the point is, if this player receives the ball, if they can drive with the ball, and these guys can get in front of the man with the ball quickly, it's essentially a race to that mat. If they can get on this side of that mat before that guy can get around it, it's going to be a 3v2. Okay? Now, if these two are good, the first defender will cut out an option. So a lot of times, for a moment, it's really 2v2. And that's where, even in the 3v2, that's where you're commit the guy, release at the right moment with the outside of the foot or inside or whatever. That's when that all becomes so important. Now, the other piece that I've done is we added big cones on the outsides of the grid. And those you can use in a lot of different ways. But so that this guy doesn't take 2 steps onto the field and shoot on an empty goal, you just say, okay, you have to break this line before you can shoot. So they cannot shoot until they get past the other dot so they can see something in the field, and then on the sidelines, the big cones. So they have to get beyond that before they can shoot and score. Okay, you got multiple goals, multiple directions. Like I said, there's natural mechanisms built in to push tempo. It checks a lot of boxes for us. Okay, and then the last thing I would do is I would leave this grid up. I mean, there's a million things we can do, but let's just say we leave that grid up. And then something that we talked about was decision making, changing direction, all that kind of stuff, patience. So, I mean, obviously, multiple goals keeps your change of direction option alive. But patience, usually you have to really paint that picture multiple times. So, I mean, I don't know. What I might do is I may play 4v4, maybe +1. So there's always an extra man to commit somebody and release and all that kind of stuff. You can do it that way. I would almost always have a drop. Okay, that's my keeper or my center back. But if that's a center back, that's my 6, 8, 10, and 9. So your striker, your center defender, your midfield 3, or obviously U10, we don't have 11v11, so, fill it in. That could be the keeper, defender, mids, attacker, whatever. Okay? So you can play it just like that, so they can go backwards and play back in here fairly easily because they have an extra. At this age, you may have to give them 2 extras and play with 2 neutrals. You can begin, just score at any time you want, and then you reintroduce the zone, so they have to get in there first to score. Instead of helping them here. I mean, if you just play straight up 4v4, at that age, it's probably going to be kind of ugly. So they need a little help. So maybe there's 1 neutral in here, and then neutrals there. Okay? And then maybe even what you do then is you could even take the goals away if you wanted, and just make it a directional game. I mean, to goals is a directional game, but it can be a directional possession game. Clean this up a little bit. Yeah, and just have a neutral there and a neutral there. Okay, but we make them understand that, again, this would be like 11v11, that's a left mid and that's a right mid. And then depending on which way you're going, that's either a striker or center back or goalie or whatever. And so now they can use the neutrals on the outside and the neutral here. In reality, I would be calling this, if it was me, that's just my preference, I would be calling these neutrals right back and left back. And that's my goalie. So if we're under pressure, we can use our goalie and they can change the point of attack. If you want to make it really easy to start, which I recommend, they could go there, and maybe the neutrals can play each other. So goalkeeper to outside back. Maybe the rule is never twice in a row. Otherwise, they just go like that, and it kind of kills your game. So neutrals can't pass to neutrals twice in a row. And that's how the game begins. Something like that. Okay? But it's basically X's are trying to work the ball to one end, and then keeping possession. Try and get it across to the other end, and that equals a point. Or something like that. Okay? It can also be, like I had earlier, a multi-goal game or something like that. And maybe after setting it up like that, once they're going, once they start getting things, you just start removing neutrals. And just make it more and more and more difficult. Odds are it will end up being 4v4 plus 1 or maybe plus 2 in the middle. Or maybe you just take that guy out and they're there all the time. It just depends on how well they're doing. If they're really struggling, obviously you leave lots of neutrals in there to help them be successful. But with every single one of these things, except for the very beginning warm-up, set it up, explain the rules, explain how it works, let them try, let them fail, so that you know what to address, and it also validates you giving them the right information. But let them go. They'll get the hang of the rotation, the point system, whatever. Lots of times kids forget to keep score, so I use that first round as a demo round. And then step in, start fixing things and progressing and making it more and more and more realistic. So that's what we'll try today. We'll see how it goes, and then we will write a session for Wednesday after today's session.